Well, good afternoon, fellow constitutionalists, and welcome to the Free-for-All-Friday edition of the Dan Clements Show, a Christian political talk show. I'm your host, Dan Clements, your constitutional warrior fighting for your right just to be an American. It is Friday, March 30th, the year of our Lord 2018. Remember, we're a hyphen-free, PC-free zone. God is still in control, and He does love you. And I'm broadcasting live from the Hemlock Studios in the sloped, soggy Central Susquehanna Valley into Great Keystone State. Had a really good week this week, folks, as far as getting things done on the show. I'm adjusting to my new meds where I'm having a little bit more energy and be able to do a few more things to get things done. I've been really falling behind in my work on the Dan Clements Show, and I do apologize for that. And it's one of those things that I'm just going to have to keep dealing with as far as my condition, the fibromyalgia that I have, and I'm just having to work through it. So I do appreciate your patience. I want to thank, again, all my subscribers to the show and all the views I got on my one video of 15 things Emma Gonzales got wrong. I have over 14,000 views on that, and for me, that's viral for me. I have close to 100 subscribers, and that's only within the past week and a half. I've more than tripled my subscribers to the show. It's fantastic. I'm grateful for everybody that's subscribed to the show, that's watched the video. And it amazes me how these things work. You know, for a long time I'm slaving, and I get one video and it goes bonkers, and I'm glad. I'm not complaining. I'm glad for it. So I want to thank everybody for that. Today we're going to talk about bullying, especially when it comes to the Parkland High School and the bullying that Emma Gonzales actually admitted to that I missed when I did the 15 things wrong, or that 15 things Emma Gonzales got wrong. I missed one thing in there, and I apologize for that. And I do have a video clip of that, and we're going to talk about that. Now, there's been fact checking going on with Snopes and everything about this, and it's Snopes, right? I'm laughing because it's Snopes. They said it's actually absolutely false, that she did not say that. But when I show you the clip, there was a lot more going on at that high school than I think we know of. And I think, honestly, there needs to be an investigation done at the high school about the bullying of the high school shooter. Now, don't get me wrong, this does not exonerate him from what he did. Not at all. Doesn't exonerate him. But it is one of the reasons why, especially these young men who are bullied and picked on, this is one of the reasons, it's one of the contributing factors, as it were, leading up to this shooting. And again, doesn't exonerate the shooter, but there's some culpability here with the school system, with teachers, administrators, and especially the students with this bullying that's going on that Emma Gonzales, I want to call her Thompson for some reason, Emma Gonzales is actually talking about here. So we're going to go over that. We're going to talk about that. I have a couple articles actually from louderwithcrowder.com, really good, well written by Courtney Kirchhoff. And so I'm going to read those. I have a short Bible lesson. What about gun control? I'm going to read a lot of articles today because I think instead of me just flipping out of them, I'm going to read you. They're very short. I'm going to read you, and we're going to talk about things in these articles here. We're going to talk about, David French has an article in the National Review talking about assault weapons ban, 3 arguments against this. And I have some other stuff in here about Pope Francis, and I also have something about another judge on Obamacare, or on, let me look that up real quick because I don't want to get that wrong. Obamacare HHS mandate dealt a lethal blow in court. And I have a little story about the Pope, if you haven't heard, that the Pope says there is no hell. But the Pope's been saying a lot of things lately that just aren't true, that just aren't biblical. And he's supposed to be infallible, according to Catholic tradition and the Catechism. So, excuse me. I don't know how you become infallible with that. All right, let's get into the show here. Today's daily Bible reading is from Mark chapter 15, verses 33 through 39. Now when the 6th hour had come, there was darkness over the whole land until the 9th hour. And at that 9th hour, Jesus cried out with a loud voice, saying, Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani, which is translated, my God, why have you forsaken me? Some of those who stood by when they heard that said, look, he is calling for Elijah. Then someone ran and filled a sponge full of sour wine, put it on a reed, and offered it to him to drink, saying, let him alone. Let us see if Elijah will come to take him down. And Jesus cried out with a loud voice and breathed his last. Then the veil of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom. So when the centurion who stood opposite him saw that he cried out like this and breathed his last and said, truly, this man was the Son of God. Now, this weekend, the Christian world, as it were, they are celebrating Easter, the resurrection of Jesus Christ. And I wanted to read this to you because this is part of what they celebrate, part of what they read into their lessons and sermons for Easter weekend. You know, the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. Good Friday today. So this would be on the Catholic calendar. This would be the Jewish calendar, I guess. This would be the burial day of Jesus Christ. He was in the grave Friday, Saturday, and then he came out Sunday for the resurrection. And the only reason why I bring this up is because, and I've talked about this over the years, the Bible does not, I repeat this, does not authorize the celebration of Easter. Nowhere in Scripture can you find where we're commanded to observe an Easter observation, you know. And a friend of mine, Mike, put out that we celebrate the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ every first day of the week when we partake of the Lord's Supper. That's when we celebrate as Christians. That's when we should be thinking about the death, burial, and resurrection and sacrifice of Jesus Christ when we partake of the Lord's Supper on the first day of the week. So I just want to put that out. I know some people get mad at me for saying it's not in the Bible, and they try to prove that it is, and it really isn't. But I just wanted to bring it up because this is on everybody's mind right now, and so I'm going to talk about it. Now, today's quote meal comes from John Churchton Collins. We are no more responsible for the evil thoughts that pass through our minds than a scarecrow for the birds which fly over the seed plot he has to guard. The sole responsibility in each case is to prevent them from settling. I like that. That's a good one. That's a really, really good one. Let me get something. I got to set one thing up here that I forgot to set up before. So I turn off there. I wanted to read this Focus Press article to you. That it's not very long. If I can get over to it, it's not very long, and it is. I think it's a good article. It's by Jack Wilkie. He always puts out good articles. So let's go over here and look at this article here. What about gun control? Now, he penned this on the 27th of this month. What about gun control? Over a month later, the Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School shooting remains in the headlines on a daily basis. What bothers me most about the Parkland, Florida case was how I saw the news and barely reacted to it at first. Many of you probably felt the same way. These stories have become so commonplace that what was once an unthinkable horror in the days before Columbine has now become almost routine. Another shooting recently occurred in Maryland, though this one was limited to just 2 students as a resource officer was able to save countless lives. But history tells us that it won't be long before there's another shooting. When that next one happens, will likely be dulled even more to the headlines. And I want to stop the reading here. I know Jack Wilkie does a good job on here, but I have a video I'm going to share with you before I get into the rest of these readings about how school shootings are a rarity. Now, they're horrific when they happen, but they're still a rarity. And what he said in his first paragraph shows the difference between what happened in Parkland and what happened in Maryland when you have an armed resource officer that's going to go in and take care of business. Where the shock and sadness should be, the fierce debate over guns has taken its place. Facebook and Twitter are filled with people, scores of Christians included, debating the issue, many of them digitally yelling at each other and calling each other brainless or heartless for their positions on guns. With this topic being so prominent and with the discussion rising to the national forefront multiple times each year, there are 3 things we all need to keep in mind when wading into the debate. We must acknowledge that there's no simple, clear-cut solution, and I've said that many times on the show here, folks. Before the bodies are even buried, it seems that everybody has a solution to the problem figured out. Ban all guns, arm the teachers, ban only certain guns, hire veterans to guard the schools. Though both sides share the same goal of wanting innocent people, children in particular, to be kept safe, the fact gets lost once we get into the finer points of the varying sides. If you don't want the government to impose gun bans, you're clearly heartless and want children to die, as one side sees it. If you do want to impose gun bans, you're ignorant of how guns and prohibition work, as the other side sees it. Like a dog chasing its tail, our country goes around and around making those accusations of each other, failing to acknowledge that none of us has a 100% foolproof answer to protecting innocent people, and that we all want the same thing despite our different methods of getting there. If we have the humility to accept those 2 points, maybe our divisions won't be as sharp. 2, we must realize how pointless most of our arguments are. This is an important point that extends far beyond just the issue of gun control. Minds are almost never changed by you or me posting our opinions online. One study found that 94% of Republicans and 92% of Democrats and 85% of independents claim that their minds have never been changed by a Facebook post. We might think people who disagree with us on guns are hopelessly misguided. We might think we have the perfect answers for their beliefs, but in the end, we're probably not changing their minds by posting on Facebook. Now, I do want to take exception with that. There's been a couple occasions on Facebook that my mind has been changed, or something that I thought was one way was actually another way, and it actually did change my mind. And so I do, Jack makes a good point here, but I think what happens is too many people get entrenched in their posting, in their, this is my side and this is what we're going to do. You know, that type of mentality. So keep that in mind. There's a lot of people out there, no matter how many facts, no matter how much evidence on either side that you show them, they will not change their position, period, at all. 3rd, we must remember that showing love to others is our first priority. Even if you or I are able to win one person over to our side on the gun debate, if we drive away others in the process, it simply wasn't worth it. Romans 12:18 must be a governing principle for every Christian when it comes to heated debates. If it is possible, as much as depends on you, live peaceably with all men. That often means keeping your thoughts to yourself on divisive matters of opinion and working hard to find common ground, even with people who strongly disagree with you. The thought of Jesus publicly getting into a non-religious left-right political policy debate with someone, calling them stupid or disagreeing with them, and causing them to hate him and never associate with him again because it's absurd. We want to be like Jesus, right? Then it should be absurd for us too. And this is, folks, this has absolutely happened to me. I've been blocked because of this issue. And it wasn't because I was being ignorant to anybody. I was just stating some facts that weren't being stated by the other side. And they were just totally, and this is a person that no matter what I say, no matter how many facts I show her, she wasn't going to change her mind. But I couldn't let her statement stand without some facts and some reason behind it. Now, another thing that came out in this paragraph here is the statement, well, that's just your opinion. And I find it kind of funny that if you go through and you're doing some research, you're finding the statistics, and hopefully you're not being biased in this, folks. I really don't want people being biased in this, especially Christians. We should be looking at both sides of the argument, listening to both sides of the argument, doing some research, see what the facts actually are, and then go from there. A lot of my friends, and I don't do the left-right paradigm anymore, a lot of my friends that are in the less freedom category that want the government to do everything for us, they use websites that are I'm very skeptical of because of my fact checking that I've done, that their stats don't add up to what is actually published out there. They use different definitions of words like mass shootings and stuff like that. They change the narrative to make things look worse than what they are. And we need to avoid that too. But just saying, well, that's just your opinion, and without looking at what the person is saying, without doing some research into what that person is saying, I think that's just as wrong. I think if someone's putting forth an argument and they've taken the time to do so, I think it behooves us to take the time to look at that argument that they're putting forth. We already preach a divisive, controversial gospel. Let's not do anything to push people further away by publicly dividing people with our opinions. This is obviously an issue about which both sides feel very passionately, and truth be told, we're probably not going to be able to reach an agreement or even a compromise with a lot of people. That doesn't take away the Christians' need to be a peacemaker. Matthew chapter 5, verses 9. These shootings are horrific reminders of the power of sin in this world. In responding to them, we must make sure we are showing the love and care that Jesus would show, regardless of how strong and disagreeable the opinions of those around us might be. And again, Jack is being very non-confrontational here when he talks about opinions. But there are knowable, researchable, understandable facts that are out there that are on one side and not the other side. And those need to be searched out, and we need to have a civil public discourse or debate about those, and we need to be genuine in that. And that's what, and I agree with Jack, that's what's missing in here, the Christian compassion here. Yeah, it's a horrific thing, and people react to horrific situations in different ways. We need to be mindful of that and be compassionate of that. But again, I know he says here, we already preach a divisive, controversial gospel. That's from the world's point of view. From my point of view, it's not the gospel is not divisive. It's not controversial. The gospel is what it is. It's how you receive it and how you react to the receiving of God's word, if it's going to be divisive or controversial, if you understand what I'm saying. Okay, I just wanted to go over that real quick because that was something that's been I've been thinking a lot about. My buddy Dave sent me a good email yesterday, and I've been thinking about that since yesterday about that. And it's like I said, it's amazing to me how entrenched people on both sides are going to be. And I'll just give you a real quick example. And this is not opinion. This is actual fact. The Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments to the Constitution. The Bill of Rights do not grant us our rights. The government does not grant us our rights. Nowhere in the Constitution or the Bill of Rights will you see where the government says, we grant these rights unto you. The rights we have, the First, Second Amendment, Third Amendment, Fourth Amendment, those are natural rights that we have. And some say, and I even say this, that they're God-given rights that we have that precede government. People have always preceded government. And these are natural rights that we have. The only thing that Bill of Rights do is protect our rights from an overreaching federal government. And I'm going to have a video out later this weekend or early next week about the Second Amendment and gun repeal, or repeal in the Second Amendment, and how it won't work. And it's I've been doing some research on this, and it's pretty good. Hopefully it's going to be a good video for you. But anyway, so that's not my opinion. That's actual facts. Now you can twist those facts around and say, oh no, the government does grant you these things, and the government can regulate those. And again, I'll go back to the Constitution. There is nothing in the enumerated powers in Article 1, Section 8 that says the federal government has the authority to regulate guns, regulate free speech, regulate, freedom of religion, any of that kind of stuff. It just isn't there. Now, do we have a body of law that governs those? Yeah, but the question you have to ask is, if it's not an enumerated power of the federal government, is it constitutional for them to be doing so? That's a good question you have to ask. Now, I have this. It's a little over 2 minutes. It's a reason.com video that they put together, and I think it's very good, talking about March for Lives. Kids don't know their schools are actually really safe. And so I'm going to play this video for you and let you come to your own conclusions on that.
To those politicians supported by the NRA that allow the continued slaughter of our children and our future, I say, get your resumes ready.
The students of Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida, have re-energized the national movement to restrict gun ownership, following the tragic mass shooting that claimed 17 lives. The culmination of this movement was the massive March for Our Lives rally in Washington, D.C.
I'm here to help stop gun violence.
I just think enough is enough, and I don't want to see any more lives being lost.
I want less children to die.
We can and we will change the world.
The students from Stoneman Douglas have earned praise for their leadership in demanding that Congress take decisive action. But there's another consequence of this movement, which is that the Parkland mass shooting seems to be stoking irrational fear about gun violence in schools.
I'm here because I want to feel safe in my school.
You'd come away from the March for Our Lives thinking that there's a mass shooting epidemic in American schools.
I do think it's more dangerous in schools.
There's more school shootings now. We're all in danger.
But what happened at Stoneman Douglas was an extremely rare occurrence. American schools are profoundly safe, and most likely getting safer. According to researchers at Northeastern University, shooting incidents involving students have actually decreased in recent years. And in the 1990s, the overall crime rate was much higher than it is today. The rate of homicides from firearms in the U.S. has plummeted. In fact, students are orders of magnitude more likely to die in a car crash on their way to school than they are to be gunned down in their classrooms. Yet the protesters were demanding more security in schools, a lot more. So do you think there should be more police officers in schools?
Yeah, definitely. Trained officers or security guards should be the ones protecting students.
Even if it means making armed guards a fixture of the lives of children.
I support sensible gun policy.
It's simple, no guns, less violence.
We should stop having guns anywhere at all. I feel like guns should be outlawed.
I just would like to see guns illegal.
This latest hysteria over mass shootings and guns is leading to claims that we must relinquish our rights in the name of safety, which is a familiar story from the drug war to the war on terror. Teenagers have every right to fight for a cause they believe in, and the students from Stoneman Douglas are justifiably enraged about an event that claimed the lives of so many friends and classmates. But feelings shouldn't trump facts, and we should never craft policies from a place of fear in the wake of tragedy.
There should be more regulations, or there should just be more laws. There just needs to be something happening. Thoughts and prayers don't do much anymore. It's just tired of it.
Now, I understand. I'm very sympathetic to these folks and their feelings. Now, again, I believe a lot of these folks down at the March for Our Lives are operating off their feelings. And when they say that, one girl said, well, no guns, no gun violence, she doesn't have the facts. Now, that there is an uninformed opinion. She doesn't have the facts. And if you do any research on it, you'll understand that countries, and everybody keeps pointing to Europe, and I was doing some research on this, that over in Europe, if you take all the countries together in Europe and actually use the same definitions we use here, they're no better than we are on gun violence. And they have a lot of gun restrictions. And yet their gun violence is as high as ours. And don't forget this. And this is something that I think we always forget about. Where is that at? Get it up there. Hang on a second, folks. I have another one here. In here. This is a stabbing incident that happened out north of Pittsburgh, around Pittsburgh, back in 2014. Let me just bring that up for you here. I can't put this. I'm sorry, folks. I can't put this one in reading mode because of the. Some reason when I do it, I get like spaces all the way down through here. But this was back in 2014, April 9th, 2014. Students described Slasher's rampage at Western PA High School. A 16-year-old boy described it as quiet and shy, fled away with 2 knives in a crowded halls of his suburban Pittsburgh high school Wednesday, stabbing and slashing 21 students and a school police officer before an assistant principal tackled him, authorities said. At least 4 students were in critical condition Wednesday evening, including a boy who was on a ventilator after a knife pierced his liver, missing his heart and aorta by millimeters, doctors said. And so I don't want to read the whole thing. England, the UK is having a problem with this now. These knife attacks, with acid attacks. Evil people are going to do evil things with whatever they can lay their hands to. It's just that simple, folks. And honestly, it's no more complicated than that. It really isn't any more complicated than that. They're going to do what they do. They're going to find a way. They're going to find a way. It's happening over in Japan. It's happening over in Asia. It's spreading into Europe. Terrorists are using vehicles now to run down people. It's not just the guns. And folks, it's not the vehicles. It's not the knives. It's not the acid. It's none of those things. It's a heart thing, folks. It's a heart thing. That's part of the problem. That's not the root of the problem, but it's part of the problem. And trying to ban the guns will do no good because that's dealing with a symptom. Matter of fact, if he wasn't able to get guns and he was left to go on his own, the Parkland High School shooter, who knows if he wouldn't have got a couple good butcher knives or cleaver and just walked down the hallways and started hacking and slashing. Who knows? We don't know those things. So it's in my opinion, it's bad policymaking to blame the gun. You know, we had this bomber out in Austin, Texas last week. I didn't really cover it on that. There was a lot of coverage on that already. But the one thing I want to say about this, nobody was blaming the bombs. Nobody was blaming the bombs. Because it wasn't a bomb thing. This guy had a screw loose. And I don't know if they're going to find out that why he did what he did. Look at his background, stuff like this. But there was something definitely wrong with this guy. So it's not a gun thing. It's not a bomb thing. It's not a knife thing. It's not a acid thing. It's a heart thing. It's a mind thing. With this Parkland High School student who was shooting up the place, I have a little video clip I want to show you. I was talking about this in my monologue real quick, where some people, this is just conspiracy theory. But I got the clip, and it's out of a video that I did, out of 15 things Emma Gonzales got wrong. It's in the middle of that video clip that I shared. And I honestly, folks, I breezed over it. I didn't realize I should have been. A lot of times when I'm listening to something, I do, I kind of tend to miss things unless I hear it multiple times. And I'm starting to try to get transcripts of these things so I can read through it because I'll remember it and I can catch these things easier and quicker if I read through them. But there is this clip that I'm going to show you here that, folks, this is the problem with bullying. This is the problem with ostracizing people. When I was a kid, I wasn't the biggest kid. I wasn't small, but I wasn't the biggest kid. But I got bullied when I was in elementary school, and I got bullied when I was in junior high school. But I took matters in my own hands. Matter of fact, my dad helped me out in this. When I was in elementary school, you know, a couple of the in crowd, the guys, for some reason didn't like me because I lived out in the country. I didn't live in the city. I lived out in the country. And I've been called, now it didn't bother me in high school, but I was called a country bumpkin, you know, clod stomper, stuff like that. You know, when you're younger like that, you don't like to be called names like that. But I was bullied, but not to the extent to these other guys are, because I was able to stand up for myself. Did I get in trouble for standing up for myself? You betcha. When I was in elementary school, there was usually these two boys, and I won't use any names. I don't remember them anyway. There was two boys when I was in elementary in Findlay City High School that always picked on me at the same time. Well, the one time, the one guy came up and picked on me. We were about the same size, and I pushed him down to the ground. I gave him a shove so hard in the chest that he lost his balance and ended up on his back. But guess who was watching me? It was the principal was watching me. And boy, did he dust my pants off the paddle after that. I was like sixth grade, you know, getting ready to go to junior high school, you know, sixth, seventh grade. I think it was sixth grade. And he asked me what was going on. I said, well, him and his buddy usually pick on me both at the same time, and I really can't do anything about it. And he I don't know where his buddy was, but he come over and started picking on me by himself, and I had it. And I fought back. And he said, well, that's unacceptable, and dusted my britches off, called my dad. Usually I got disciplined the second time I got home, but my dad that time sat down and talked with me about it. My dad is a former Marine, and he doesn't like taking guff off anybody. And he goes, if I ever hear you starting a fight, you and I are going to have more than words. But he said, if someone else starts a fight with you, it's okay that you finish it. Now, you tell that to your kids now, and they're probably going to haul you off to jail too. Well, my dad said I'm allowed to finish a fight. And, you know, because there's a zero tolerance for everything in school. And young men butt heads. They just do. And when I started standing up for myself, guess what? The bullies quit picking on me, especially when they found out that I wasn't going to take their guff. I was in junior high school. There was a guy that my older sister dated. I won't use any names. I remember his name very well. Him and two of his buddies used to pick on me. And I think it was more that I was just her brother. And my sister used to talk smack about me. I think that's about the only reason why. But anyway, they started picking on me. And I was a real fast runner. Well, I ain't going to stand up to three. I ain't going to get pummeled by three of them. So I took off running. They cornered me one time. And I got beat, but guess what? They got beat too, because I wasn't just going to lay down and take the punches. And they knew I was there in that fight. I didn't win it, but they knew I was there. And you know what? After that, his two buddies really didn't want nothing to do with me, because I really gave in a couple good licks to those guys. And I was starting to get to be a hoss. And then the last time I was bullied was in high school. I was a freshman in high school, coming from the city, and this one guy there, he thought he was the big king bully. Really wasn't. He was just a bully. And he didn't like me because I came from the city. I didn't know who he was, never had any interaction with him. He just knew I came from the Findlay City school systems out to Riverdale High School in Blanchard, Ohio. And he just didn't like me for breathing, and he tried picking on me. And luckily, our self-defense coach, Coach King, caught him throwing the first punch, and I pretty much laid him out with a couple punches. And from that point on, I got in trouble too, not as much as the other guy did. The other guy got suspended for a couple days, and I got a good talking to by Coach King, and actually ended up taking self-defense classes with Coach King. And from then on, no one picked on me. And I'd stand up for kids. I hated bullies. I hated them. There's no reason to bully anybody. No reason whatsoever. And, you know, if I saw a bully picking on a younger kid, I would step in. I'd say, hey, why don't you pick on me? Someone your own size. They'd back down. Not that I don't think I had a reputation, but, you know, I hated it. You know, I remember one time in the bathroom, there was a fight in the bathroom. I don't know how many, you know, guys, I'll be 56 this year. I don't know how many guys my age, you know, saw fights in the bathroom. And it was a bully picking on a smaller guy. And I was going to step in at first until I seen that smaller guy really whooping up on him, got him down on the floor. And the guy that was on the floor, he started yelling for help, and one of his buddies was going to jump in on it. And I pretty much grabbed him by the arm and swung him around and got him behind me and said, don't even think about it. And the guy on the floor, he was like really in horror because this kid was wailing on him. And he picked the wrong fight with the wrong guy, you know, and that's honestly, that's how you have to be. You have to stand up against these bullies. And hopefully, and look, folks, some of these guys, some of these friends, or some of your friends may not be able to stand up against them, or some of your acquaintances may not be able to stand up against these bullies. The last time I got in a fight was, I think it was in my senior year, late junior year, early senior year. A buddy of mine was giving me a hunting permit to go hunting on his farmland. We had to do that back then. I don't know if you still do now. Had to do that back then, and he was getting that done. And another friend of mine that I knew from Findlay City Schools, he was out there, I think it was junior year. Yeah, it had to be my junior year because I had braces. Anyway, he started picking on him, and I told him to quit, and he wouldn't quit. So I backed him off of him because my buddy, he wasn't a fighter. He's a lover, not a fighter, and he'll back down from fighting. That's fine. I don't take anything away from him about that. And me and this other guy got into a fisticuff, and I didn't know he was a Gold Glove boxer. Didn't really care, but it was pretty much of a draw on the fight. Except I had braces on, and my lips were like cut up like hamburger. But we both got 2-day suspension, and nothing was said after that. You know, he never picked on my friend again, and never did anything else. He was only there. I don't think he was there the senior year. I think they were only there for like my junior year. I knew him from Findlay, and from the junior high I went to. So, you know, I'll stand up for a person that's being bullied on. And my question is, and after I show you this clip, but I want to say this before I show you the clip. Instead of picking on this kid, why didn't somebody stand up for him? Or why didn't a group of somebody stand up for this kid? I think, folks, I think there needs to be investigation done in the high school on these students and the teachers and administrators that let this bullying go on. Doesn't excuse what the shooter did, not whatsoever. But there's some culpability here on what's going on here. Let me get this set up here for you.
Since he was in middle school, it was no surprise to anyone who knew him to hear that he was the shooter. Those talking about how we should have not ostracized him, you didn't know this kid! Okay, we did!
You didn't know this kid. We did. We ostracized him. I'm like, I can't believe I missed that to begin with. I really can't. And I have this article here. I have two of them here real quick from Louder with Crowder. The first one is Parkland survivor Emma Gonzales admits to bullying the shooter. Now, she did. She admitted it. And she admitted that there was bullying of this shooter going on from junior high on. And again, where were the stand-up guys or girls? No matter how weird this kid might be, would stand up for him. maybe help protect him, maybe try to put him on a different path. I'll tell you what, my opinion, folks, my humble opinion is, I was looking at the wrong camera. My humble opinion is they're too busy living their lives on their smartphones and on their social media to see that this kid might need a friend. See that this kid might need some help. You can't help but wonder if someone would have befriended him back in junior high school, maybe help protect him from the bullies. We don't know. I mean, it's a what if game at this point. This kid did what he did. Emma admits that she was bullying him and other people, and it's been going on since junior high. And I don't know, maybe I'm reading too much into it or listening too much into that video, but I don't know how you could say that he didn't say that she was bullying him. It just amazes me. And then she's out there talking about, oh, we need to take these guns away. Why don't we start going through the schools and start locking up the bullies? Why don't we start locking up the bullies? If you're caught bullying somebody, that should be an automatic suspension. No questions asked. And if you come back and you're caught bullying them again, guess what? You're gone. And there might even, I think it should be referred over to police. I think it should be referred over to the policeman. Anyway, this is by Courtney Kirkhoff. Parkland survivor, like how she said, Parkland survivor Sinead O'Connor, also known as Emma Gonzales, is on video admitting to not only bullying and ostracizing the Parkland shooter, but she was justified in doing so. Lots to dive into on this one, so let's roll the tape. Now they have the video in there. For clarity, I'm turning on my ordered list function. And this is why I want to read these. One, just because a student is bullied doesn't mean that student is justified in shooting up the school. Two, Emma admitted she bullied the shooter is a tantamount admission the shooter, not the gunner, is responsible for the shooting. Three, yet Emma participated in a march against guns, suggesting it's the guns that are the problem, not the individual who pulled the trigger. Four, typically school shooters are young men ostracized and bullied by their peers. Five, perhaps Emma and her peers who ostracized the Parkland shooter since middle school should have a march against bullying. Six, Emma suggested no one was surprised that Parkland shooter turned out to be the shooter. She's not alone, as it was also recommended by Scott Peterson and others the shooter be involuntarily committed. Seven, had the shooter been committed, it's likely he'd have been able to, he'd be unlikely. Sorry about that. I got my eyes crossed there. It's unlikely he'd have been able to purchase a gun for the shooting. Those are obvious points, and unfortunately, we're living in stupid times where obvious points aren't obvious. Blaming a gun for someone's action is like Emma blaming her mechanical pencil for misusing the word literally in a school paper. Yet 200,000 or so dummies marched against the right to own guns, which millions of law-abiding Americans, including myself, need a personal protection, or need for personal protection. Not to put a fine point on it, read also, and it's an opinion piece, I carry a gun so I won't have to say me too. And she's associated with Louder Crowder. If you know him and you know the history that's going on there, he's had credible death threats against him and his family, against everybody that participates on the show. So as far as I know, almost everybody on that show packs heat. They conceal carry with them. You know, because there's credible death threats out on them. There's credible threats out about them, okay? The Parkland shooting has less to do with guns and more to do with government failure, and now, according to Emma, the continued bullying of an unstable young man. Again, bullying doesn't excuse or justify shooting up a school, okay? Okay, but I think less bullying of students is certainly better than we bullied him and he deserved it. Fair? People are responsible for their actions. The schools are not. If you find typos in his post, it's my keyboard's fault. That's just what I say. So that's the article about how she was bullying. Now, I did a video I said before, and I'll put the URL up in the show notes page, and it'll be, I'll actually have it in the show card of the video and down below in the description. I just did a video and posted it yesterday. It's not, the NRA is not to blame for anything. They haven't threatened anybody. Okay, and this is something that I saw this in some interviews with David Hogg and Emma Gonzales, where they said, Emma said they're basically threatening us. Well, that's English wise, that's a modifier or something. Well, they basically may not be threatening you either. They gave no evidence in the interviews. The interviewer didn't press them for the evidence. They said to try to get a hold of the NRA. I went to the NRA website. Haven't seen any rebuttals on this, which I think is a good thing. You don't want to get drawn down into that if you didn't do anything, because the left and progressives like to Kafka trap people. K-A-F-K-A, Kafka trapping. Go look that up. It's very enlightening. And so, again, I have that video out there about they're blaming the NRA. And this is something that they also dealt with on Louder with Crowder. Parkland students bullied the shooter but are blaming the NRA by Courtney Kirkhoff. And this was posted on the 29th, yesterday. Dear Parkland bullies, we interrupt your national media-sponsored Cry Fest for a brief and simple lecture. No notes needed. I'll provide. Over the weekend, one of your comrades, Emma Gonzales, admitted to ostracizing the Parkland shooter. Now, to be fair, he post-penned this on the 29th of this month, okay? I did that video, 15 Things Emma Gonzales Got Wrong, last month. I mean, like within that week, like the week after the Parkland shooting. So he got that a little bit wrong. But I think people like me, we glossed over that. And it was just someone noticed it saying, wait a minute, and brought that out. So she could be right in that respect. I'm not going to get on her too much about it. As early as the middle school, let me read that paragraph again. Over the weekend, one of your comrades, Emma Gonzales, admitted to ostracizing the Parkland shooter. As early as middle school, in an event where you, her, and all your other weepy, whining cohorts marched against the Second Amendment rights of Americans who had nothing to do with the events in Parkland. Not only did Emma admit to ostracizing the shooter, she wasn't sorry for it. An interesting development considering how the young man turned out. Meanwhile, all of the student-turned-activists are blaming the NRA, legal gun owners, and in some cases Marco Rubio for what happened in Parkland. Do you see where I'm going with this? Let me break it down for you. If you've admitted, as Emma has, that you ostracized the shooter as early as middle school, you've admitted a person, not the tool used, is responsible for the shooting, specifically a person you made to feel excluded. If a person is responsible for his or her actions, as the shooter is, then a group of opportunistic anti-gun shrills actively campaigning against a group which has no involvement in the shooting, the NRA, is irresponsible at best, malicious at worst. Some might say you're engaging in bullying tactics. Seems to me, if anyone played a role in the shooter's motive, if anyone contributed to the shooter's action, neither Marco Rubio or the NRA is to blame. Am I blaming you for what the shooter did? No. Even if someone is bullied into a spiraling depression that may lead to suicide, a person's actions are ultimately their own. See, unlike you, I believe people are responsible for themselves. You're responsible for your actions. The shooter is responsible for his. What I do find impressive is the gall you have to, while knowing you may have tormented what would one day become a mass school shooter, you're actively blaming the National Rifle Association, a group made up of legal American gun owners who didn't know the shooter, who didn't actively bully or ostracize a young man as early as 12 or 13 years old. If I were a clinical psychologist, I might suggest you're actively engaging in projection. That is shifting blame. And I'm not going to read any further down through there, but you get the flavor of that. They are blaming the NRA. They're absolutely blaming the NRA for this, and the NRA had nothing to do with it. And I do think there's that Emma and anybody else that ostracized the Parkland shooter, I think they bear some responsibility, and I think some action should be taken against that. Because some states do have laws against bullying. I don't know if Florida's one of them, but if they do, I think there should be some charges brought up. She admitted it right in that video. And I wonder how many other people helped her with that or was a part of that bullying, that ostracizing. It just, again, it's just, oh. I have some other articles in here that I'm not really going to get to. There's one in here by David French, nationalreview.com, assault weapons ban, 3 arguments against it. I don't want to go ahead and read that. It'll be in the show notes page over at the danclementshow.com. And if you're following the episodes, it's episode 975. So that'll be over there at the show notes page on the podcast and just as a show notes if you don't want to listen to the podcast of the show after this. I want to get a couple more things right at the top of the hour. I want to get a couple more things before we go on here. And it's just, again, I saw this and I was like, you got to be kidding me. You got to be kidding me, right? I'm a Christian, and I don't make any bones about it. I don't try to hide it. I'm probably not as forthcoming with it as I should be, and I think that's one of the things, one of the critiques I get on my show, and I'm going to try better in the future here. But I am a New Testament Christian. I believe that the Bible is the inerrant Word of God. I do not believe that the Bible authorizes the Catholic Church to exist. I've read through the Bible numerous times now, and I find nowhere in the Bible talking about setting up a church like the Catholic Church is set up. Now, if you can show that to me in the Bible, I'd appreciate it. Leave a comment down below in the comments on the video here if you think I don't know what I'm talking about. But I've read through the Bible, especially the New Testament, multiple times. I still haven't found it. And actually, I look for it every time I go through it. I don't see the organization of the Catholic Church in the New Testament. It's not there. And I find it funny when a man, the Pope, the head of the Catholic Church, supposed to be inerrant, talks about, well, there's no hell. I'm like, you got to be kidding me, right? I thought this had to be a joke until I seen where it was from. CNSnews.com. It's by Michael W. Chapman, posted yesterday. And there's a statement down below with the Vatican here. The story's been updated to include a statement from the Vatican. In another interview with his longtime atheist friend, Eugenio Scalafari, Pope Francis claimed that hell does not exist and that condemned souls just disappear. This is a denial of the 2,000-year-old teaching of the Catholic Church about the reality of hell and the eternal existence of the soul. Now, let me stop the reading there. The Catholic Church didn't actually start until Emperor Constantine, and I think that was around AD, between 3 and 600. 83 and 600. I think it was closer to 600. They're not 2,000. It's not a 2,000-year-old teaching of the Catholic Church. But that's a side note. The interview between Scalafari and the Pope was published March 28th in La Repubblica. The relevant section on hell was translated by the highly respected weblog Rorate Calais. The interview is headlined, "The Pope, it's an honor to be called revolutionary." Scalafari says to the Pope, "Your Holiness, in our previous meeting, you told me that our species will disappear in a certain moment, and that God, still out of his creative force, will create new species. You have never spoken to me about the souls who died in sin and will go to hell to suffer for eternity. You have, however, spoken to me of good souls admitted to the contemplation of God. But what about bad souls? Where are they punished?" Pope Francis says, they are not punished. Those who repent obtain the forgiveness of God and enter the rank of souls who contemplate him. But those who do not repent and cannot therefore be forgiven disappear. There is no hell. There is no disappearance of sinful souls. And this is a painting, if you're on the video watching this, painting of Jesus rejecting the devil's temptations in the desert. Okay? The Catechism of the Catholic Church states the teaching of the Church affirms the existence of hell and its eternity. Immediately after death, the souls of those who die in a state of mortal sin descend into hell, where they suffer the punishments of hell, eternal fire. The chief punishment of hell is eternal separation from God, in whom alone man can possess the life and happiness for which he was created and for which he longs. The Catechism further states the affirmations of sacred Scripture and the teachings of the Church on the subject of hell are a call to the responsibility incumbent upon man to make sure of his freedom in view of his eternal destiny. They are at the same time an urgent call to conversion. Enter by the narrow gate, for the gate is wide and the way is easy that leads to destruction, and those who enter it are many. For the gate is narrow and the way is hard that leads to life, and those who find it are few. Since we know neither the day nor the hour, we should follow the advice of the Lord and watch constantly, so that when the single course of our earthly life is completed, I don't know why I said contemplated up through there. It's completed. My eyes are just, we may merit to enter with him into the marriage feast and be numbered among the blessed, and not like the wicked and slothful servants, be ordered to depart into the eternal fire in the outer darkness, where men will weep and gnash their teeth. Pope Benedict the 16th said in 2007 sermon, Jesus came to tell us that he wants us in heaven, and that hell, of which so little is said in our time, exists and is eternal for those who close their hearts to his love. As for the human soul, the Catholic Church teaches that it is eternal and immortal in countless places throughout the Catechism. For instance, endowed with a spiritual and immortal soul, the human person is the only creature on earth that God has willed for its own sake. From his conception, he is destined for eternal beatitude. In a statement released March 29th, after Scalfari's report garnered worldwide attention, the Vatican said, the Holy Father Francis recently received the founder of the newspaper, La Repubblica, in a private meeting on occasion of Easter, without, however, giving him any interviews. What is reported by the author in today's article in La Repubblica is a result of his reconstruction, in which the textual words pronounced by the Pope are not quoted. No quotation of the aforementioned article must therefore be considered as a faithful transcription of the words of the Holy Father. That's the article. But the thing is, Pope Francis has been talking about a lot of other things that go against Scripture. And so I'm not sure who to believe here, but I don't think the Pope's infallible, as the Catholic Church thinks he is. And I think he makes mistakes just like anybody else. And he has been one of the most, like I said, I grew up Catholic, but I'm not Catholic anymore, but he is one of the most liberal popes I've seen in my lifetime. And a lot of my friends who are Catholic don't have a lot of good things to say about him. They really don't. And this is the Pope, folks. This is the Pope that they don't have a lot of things to say about. So, all right. Last thing. One more sip of coffee here. Anytime I see anything about a blow being dealt to Obamacare, I'm all for it. Obamacare HHS mandate dealt a lethal blow in court by Bill Donahue, March 29th of this year. The Obamacare Health and Human Services mandate forcing Catholic nonprofits to provide coverage for abortion, including drugs, contraception, and sterilization, was dealt a lethal blow by the U.S. District Court David Russell. He issued a permanent injunction stopping the federal government from enforcing the mandate against Catholic Benefits Association. He also issued a declaratory judgment holding that the mandate was illegal. it violated the Religious Freedoms Restoration Act. The CBA represented over 1,000 Catholic employees, including 60 dioceses and archdioceses, as well as many religious orders, colleges, universities, hospitals, and other ministries. Baltimore Archbishop William Lowry chairs the CBA. Serving with him are 6 other archbishops. Douglas G. Wilson is the CEO of the organization. Judge Russell's ruling not only binds the Trump administration, which was opposed to the HHS mandatory anyway, but all future administrations. Catholic employers who belong to the CBA are now free from attempts by the federal government to coerce them into providing morally offensive health care coverage. This is a smashing victory for the religious liberty and a stunning defeat for a pro-abortion industry and its allies. So this was something, and again, this is sort of where I part ways with my progressive friends. That they want government to do everything. They want, I've talked about the net neutrality and how net neutrality uses regulations to accomplish something instead of the free market accomplishing the same thing, only without coercion. And people try to convince other people about, well, net neutrality, these regulations are good. It keeps the internet free. No regulation in the history of mankind dictated by the government makes men more freer, men or women more free. Doesn't happen. It's never going to happen. And so what these progressives are doing are just blowing smoke in a lot of people's faces. They're couching the argument, or they're structuring the argument in such a way that only the government can keep the internet free and open for you. Can't trust the corporations. And the problem with that, again, the reason why there's only usually one internet provider in an area is because they came in and coerced the local government with bribes or whatever to have what they call last mile ISP monopolies. And that's the problem. If they didn't have these monopolies, there'd be way more competition out there that would drive your prices down and actually make the internet freer. Okay? And just like guns, there is not a single law that you can put on the books that is going to take care of this problem. There just isn't. Again, it's not a gun thing. This young man was ostracized and bullied from middle school on. And so it's not, the gun's not the problem. The gun is not the problem. And having more regulations isn't going to solve it. A lot of people in that film with Reason.com, that young lady said, well, less guns, less gun violence. It just makes common sense. Statistics prove her wrong with that. Matter of fact, Chicago proves her wrong. Every major city in the country that has restrictive gun control laws proves her wrong on that. It's less guns equals more gun violence. And like I said, the stats, I think it's 1993 to the present, gun violence has been slowly going down. And again, this is one of these arguments you got to be listening to, folks. You really, really have to listen to this. This is one of these arguments where they change the facts on it. The progressives want to include suicide, which is a very high number when it comes to using a gun. Usually men do it, and it's a very high number. And they also want to include the gang shootings. Now, the gangs, they're not going into these stores and buying these illegal guns. Either they're buying stolen guns, or mostly they have to be stolen, but they're getting their guns illegally. So the law, they're flaunting the law to begin with, and it's not. Those are, to me, that's the whole drug wars and everything. That's an outlier when it comes to gun violence. If you take those out, especially the gun violence with gangs, you take those out, the United States is a pretty safe country. And the one thing these folks have in common with these gun laws is that all these cities that have restrictive gun policies are also democratically run and have been so for years. They has been so for years. So again, it's like, let's compare apples to apples here, folks. But again, we shouldn't be bullying people. If you see somebody bullied, try to protect the one that's being bullied and report the one that's doing the bullying. You know, it boggles my mind that schools have changed so much since I was in school that the student body can't take care of a bully. And so what if you get in trouble? You know what? You just might have averted a gun, a mass shooting at a school. If you befriend that one that's being bullied, don't ostracize them, protect the one that's being bullied. What if he's a little weird? I think if you really look at everybody, everybody has some type of weirdness that they deal with each and every day. I'm just saying, folks. So again, I don't like talking about the Second Amendment all the time. I don't like talking about these shootings all the time. I'm going to wrap it up with a couple more videos and get on to some other meatier stuff. Not meatier, but for me, more constitutional stuff that's going on in the country here. And especially when it comes to immigration. So, again, see something, say something, stand up. Stand up for the one being bullied. Stand against the one that's doing the bullying. This has been the Dan Clements Show. I'm your host, Dan Clements, your constitutional warrior. Remember, if you aim at nothing, you hit it every time. Have a great rest of the day, folks, and God bless. And look, if you like these videos, please hit the like button. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe and hit the bell notification, because the way YouTube's doing things now, so you can know when I'm putting up a new video or when I'm doing a live show. Share these videos, please. Word of mouth is my best friend and anybody's best friend trying to build a YouTube channel. Word of mouth. And again, I want to thank everybody that's in the past couple of weeks that have subscribed to the channel, have watched, shot my views up over 15,000. I think I'm over 20,000 views now. And I think when I get off the show, I might be over 100 subscribers. They just keep climbing every day, and I cannot thank you guys enough. And if you like what I'm doing here and want to support me, I have a PayPal account you can support me through, and I have a Patreon page you can go to. And those links will be down in the show notes page, plus they'll be down below here on the video net. So you guys have a great rest of the day. God bless. And remember, on Sunday, attend the Church of God's choice, not your choice. And remember, if you aim at nothing, you hit it every time. Have a great rest of the day, and God bless.